Welcome to the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Bret Beherns here alongside Derek Piper from Illini Inquirer live in Bloomington, Indiana, as we get set for Illinois and Indiana this morning, Central Time. It will be afternoon here, Eastern Time as well. Derek, safe trip over, I hope?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, that's good. Roads in Indiana were not quite as ideal as Illinois. Imagine that for what it is. But we made it here, and we are live here at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, as they like to say. Maybe the original Assembly Hall. I don't know. That's up for debate, but you leave it up for that. Now, as Kevin Leidy said, who's here with us, our chief meteorologist, Illinois likes to copy everything Indiana does. You could see it the other way around, too. I don't know. You guys can decide that. He's an Indiana fan, but he is alongside with us here, and we'll be behind the camera doing some social media stuff for us as well. As we get, there he is. All right. Hey, Kevin, we get set for an 11 a.m. Central Time tip-off. Illinois 2-point underdogs today here, Derek. We'll get you set here for the game and break it all down as Illinois is coming off a big win over Wisconsin. So, Derek, as you come into this one today, first initial thoughts, how are you feeling about Illinois' chances and what they're going up against? They haven't been underdogs in Big Ten play very often.
They certainly haven't, no. And you understand going on the road where Indiana's only lost one game in this building this year. And when you have fans, they got the overtime win here last year. Io fouled out, and Kofi really stepped up in overtime, as well as Andre Curbelo. But the previous 7 times when you've had fans in this building, Indiana has prevailed against Illinois. So a very tough test for them. Of course, Illinois, you look back since last season, they're 12-2 in the last 14 Big Ten road games. So a team that is years.
Yeah, I want to break down that Trace Jackson-Davis, Kofi Cockburn battle today as we move along here and get you set for the game. But like you mentioned, Indiana really tough at home. They beat Purdue here. Obviously, that was a great win. Stormed the court as they hadn't beat them in a really long time, and deserving for that in one sense. What makes them so challenging here? The crowd is great. I know this is one of your favorite Big Ten venues. It gets really, really loud in here, and it's great to be back in here with fans after last season when we didn't have that. But what makes Indiana so good at home and what they're able to do?
I think it's the atmosphere. When you look at the fans, and when they go on a run, it's hard to break. You look around the league, you've been in a lot of buildings. It's hard to break Indiana when they're starting to rattle off 6-0 run, 8-0 run. They turn those into extended runs. It's hard for teams to really get past that. And this fan base is really, really, they can relate to Illinois and being a crazy, raucous, really passionate about their team. And Indiana players feed off of that. You even I was looking at Xavier Johnson, their point guard, his home road splits. He's averaging the last 4 games at home 16 points a game, shooting nearly 50% from the field. You go on the road, he's averaging 8 points a game and shooting about 25% from the field here in January. So huge difference. They shoot better at home. They play better at home. They feed off that energy, and I know it's going to be jumping here early today.
Yeah, I would expect a great crowd here. Like you mentioned, the students lined up. I was walking up as the Illinois bus was pulling by, and they were giving them a big old boo as the Illini players got off the bus and walked in here to Assembly Hall. And there's so much history in here. I would encourage anybody that hasn't been here before. It is really, really cool to just be in this place, in this environment. It was not the same last year when there was no fans in here, and it just goes like straight up. When you're on the court, you're in this bowl, and it's a very different arena from anything else I've experienced because of just how steep it is. It's straight up for that. I know you're going to be way up top.
Yeah.
The press seating is in the lower section. Have you ever been to the top, like the very, very top?
I've been to top. I've had tickets up there before.
Okay.
Yep.
You've pretty far from the court at that
Sure
sense,
is, yep.
Right?
You're staring those banners in the face,
yeah,
from
and
the Bob Knight era.
The banners are big. They got those posted there. What would be on the north end, right? Just on the north end there, the national title banners. So much history in this place. I would encourage anybody that has not been here to make it a point to come to a game here because it really is cool. And like you mentioned, those splits are really good. What do you take away from Kofi Cockburn's second best performance in his career, 37 points, 12 rebounds against Wisconsin? He just flat out dominated, and there really didn't need to be a big need for a lot of other pieces for that because he scored, nearly half their points there. Does that translate? I don't think we can expect 37 from him every night, but like, what did you see in that game that could maybe play well into this one?
Yeah, his aggressiveness, the way that he attacked and was physical and really imposed his will going into that game, and he made quick, decisive moves. He was very efficient around the paint, and to go 16 of 19 is pretty ridiculous as far as the efficiency. Now, is he going to be able to push Trace Jackson-Davis and some of these Indiana big guys under the basket as easy as he did? Wisconsin, no, I don't think so. It was just a bad matchup for Wisconsin. When you look at their starting center is 50 pounds lighter than Kofi, that's a bad deal. So he just took advantage of the matchup and had one of those legacy type of games. I think Io talked about that last year in big moments, and when he had those memorable performances, that's something that we're going to define Kofi by long after he's playing. You're going to remember when he had 37 points against Wisconsin. That's a ridiculous stat line to put on a top 15 team. I mean, if you do that against Nicholls State in the non-conference, you're like, okay. But do that against Wisconsin when you're on the floor against another National Player of the Year contender and Johnny Davis, that was certainly a big deal. And you look at the odds, I know BetMGM had Oscar Tshiebwe and Kofi Cockburn as co-leaders, co-favorites for now National Player of the Year, the Wooden Award. So he's put himself in a good spot there. I think he's got 2 huge prove-it games against Trace and then Zach Edey, the rematch, Travion Williams. So marquee matchups, national television, ESPN, chance for him to really to further that momentum. But in terms of the matchup, I think that Kofi's just going to be feeling confident, feeling good about his game, coming off of the concussion. You're not worried about any rust there. And for him to have that kind of a performance, you expect him to be up for the challenge today.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. It's not against UTRGV, and it's nothing against UTRGV. What was their mascot? It was something unique. I can't remember what it was. I don't want to put you on the spot like that. It was something unique. It doesn't matter. It's not UTRGV. It's Wisconsin. It's a legit top 10 team in that sense, and I think they're going to be there at the end, and probably a top 5 seed overall. Wisconsin will be at the end of the year fighting for the Big Ten title along with Illinois. That was marquee for me, right? We saw Io with a lot of those moments in his career, and in the biggest moments, Io rose to the occasion. I think Kofi was behind in that because he's missed 5 games, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just if you miss 5 games of the season, that's a 6th of the season that he's missed so far. You're going to be a little bit behind in those Player of the Year rankings. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ranking that came out, right, where he's top 10 in that or whatever it was. Look, he's going to elevate himself to that as long as he keeps having those performances, and I don't have any reason to believe that he won't. Now, let's break down this TJD matchup. Like, he's a little bit different than Kofi in that sense. I looked at his numbers against Illinois the last couple of years. It was okay. Like, he's been decent, but he's not been great. So what have you seen from those matchups, and then how does that translate to what Kofi can do defensively against Trace, and then also what Trace is going to try and do against Kofi?
I know he struggled the most when you go to last year's game in Champaign. I think he was 3 of 13 from the field and didn't handle the physicality that Kofi brings to the table very well. Like, that's been one thing that through Trace's career, when he's matched up against some of the more physical bigs in the Big Ten, he is a little bit different. He's wiry, he's athletic. He wants to be able to maybe square Kofi up, use his quick twitch to try to maybe get Kofi in some foul trouble, or use angles instead of body on body, in terms of muscle on muscle, because he's going to lose that battle. So he's a little bit different. He can extend out, he can face up. He's got great length, he's athletic, and on that point, he can make things tough for Kofi at times too. I think that with his ability to challenge some shots, and you look at Indiana this year, number 5 in the country, 2-point field goal percentage defense. He has a lot to do with that. Race Thompson is a very good athlete, 6'8", can come over and block shots as well. So, but when they mat up last year in this building, Kofi and TJG had 19 and 14, so he had a very good showing in his own right. He dunked on Kofi. I know that was a moment that Brad Underwood mentions. This was kind of the thing that ignited Kofi in that game, where in the second half he went off. He was maybe a little angry about getting dunked on, and then had some rim-rocking slams in his own right. So for the most part, these guys have kind of traded punches, but Kofi is 3-0 in the matchup in terms of win and loss, and a little bit better numbers overall.
What have you seen from what Mike Woodson's been able to do in his time here, and how is this team different? Maybe with TJD, who came back, and I think he had some questions of whether he was going to come back and join with this new coaching staff and all of that. How have you seen them mix and do some different things, or is it pretty close to what they did previously?
Yeah, a lot of the faces are familiar. When you look at the big guys down low, you get Xavier Johnson, a transfer from Pitt, who's done some good things for them. And I think that you look at the transition numbers, and that's obviously something from the NBA where it's a run and gun, open the floor up, and a lot of the Archie Miller era was bogging down in the half court and not having shooters. So there's still a team that can struggle from three, but that is one thing. I think they're trying to turn what is a very, very good defense into the offense and getting out and running. So I think that might be one of the changes that you've seen out of him, and obviously they're responding to his coaching style and what he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, Kevin will attest that the lack of offense in the Archie Miller era, he's shaking his head right now. I heard many frustrating things from the Weather Center when Indiana was playing on TV. It's like, what are we doing here? A lot of games in the 50s and really just grinded out games. And the offense was the biggest question, coming into that. And I think that Mike did a good job, like getting a guy like TJD back, right, and Race, and getting those guys to return and really put them on a good trajectory. And they're right there in the middle of the pack right now in the Big Ten. I know, like you said, they've played well here as of late after a little bit of a struggle to start. But for them, like if we put ourselves in the Indiana perspective today covering it, this would be a huge win for them to get them into that top half and feel really, really good about what they're doing. Like in that sense, it almost means more to Indiana, today's game. And I think this is interesting too, Derek, and we've talked about this at length before, but Illinois always seems to be playing better as the underdog. Well, they're not that today. They're ranked, Indiana's not, and they're number one in the Big Ten, and Illinois is not. So all of that is interesting to me, combined to like where we're at today and how we get to this, and knowing that this Indiana team already beat Purdue in this building. Like they're capable, right? So I hope Illinois, for their sake, doesn't come into this game thinking, oh, well, we got Purdue Tuesday. Don't lose track of the Hoosiers today, right? And that's on Brad Underwood, so we'll see how he plays that today.
Yeah, and while they played well offensively early in that game against Wisconsin, the energy defensively was not there. And if you allow Indiana to be feeling themselves a little bit offensively, they're going to feel good about their defense. If you lack some of the punch on the glass, and because like you were saying, I mean, they're going to feel this opportunity today here in this building where if they win, they're 8-4 in the league. Illinois would have 3 losses. They're 1 game behind you.
Yeah, right.
They're 1 game behind you. They're top 30 in the net right now, but a big chance to step up with a huge marquee quad 1 win. And to say at the end of the year that they beat Purdue and Illinois, I know albeit at home, but that would still be really 2 very, very good wins for this program. They smashed Ohio State here as well. So they're in a pretty good spot. They're not on the bubble by any means. They're trending up with their stock and a chance to really be also in the conversation, top 6 seeds in the NCAA tournament, and to be right there in the mix in the top 4, top 5 in the Big Ten.
I mean, Selection Sundays today, they're in.
Definitely.
I don't have a problem. I hope Illinois fans get that sense of like, hey, this is a different team than last year in that sense, and they're going to be in. Is this a quad 1 win today if Illinois wins?
Yes.
On the road, top 30 net, right? Isn't that the qualification for that?
On the road, I think it's top 75.
Okay. All right. So a chance for Illinois today to pick up another quad 1 win, and when you look at them, like they're still needing those in a sense, right? That Wisconsin win was a really big opportunity for them to show that, like, hey, we can compete with these games and these teams and prove that we can do that. I know you said that the defense wasn't there against Wisconsin. Very quickly here, though, I love the game. It was back and forth. As a spectator, I'm sitting there going, this is a really high-level game, and this is fun. They were trading blows, and I know Brad Underwood wanted more defense, but I kind of enjoyed that in a sense. I mean, they were having a good old time scoring buckets. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin games in the past have been those first to 55, first to 60. So from a appeal standpoint, Illinois was making shots. You got Grandison going again from 3, which is good to see. Curbelo came in and provided a spark. Obviously, Kofi was dominating. And that's not to take anything away from Wisconsin, the fact that they were scoring. I mean, they have Johnny Davis is putting up 21, 22 a game. Also, Tyler Wall is a good player who got the best out of Illinois. I think we can talk more about maybe what that said about this matchup, because Race Thompson is another good 4-man that could exploit Illinois a little bit. But and to Illinois' credit, in the second half, they really locked down defensively, held Wisconsin below 60, right? 65?
Yeah, it was 80-67.
Okay, 80-67. So they held them under 70.
Which you feel great about. Like, I thought the game would be more in the upper 50s, lower 60s, but if Illinois is going to put up 80 and you're going to tell me that they're going to hold them to 67, I mean, that's a recipe for success in that sense. And the biggest thing I took away is you mentioned Johnny Davis. Yeah, he scores 22, but half were from the free throw line.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that all day if you're going to do that, and not have the amount of field goals that he's shown that he can have.
Yeah, make him take 19 shots to get 22 points.
Yeah.
And he was not efficient, 5 of 19 and was struggling. Brad Davison, I think, was 3 of 12 from the field, 0 of 6 from 3. So to be able to lock him down was really huge as well. So credit to Trent Frazier, DeMonte Williams, and those matchups in particular. And then obviously they didn't really hurt you inside all that much other than Wall.
Yeah, I thought Wall was really good. I think he had 14 in the game, and I think he was really effective in what he was able to do. And that's an impressive player. Oh, in my eyes, Derek, a Wisconsin player, we're just like, well, there's another like 6'8" dude that can just do what he does. Yep. You know what I mean? Defensively, though, what do they learn from that and taking from this game? Because you mentioned Race Thompson is that very similar type player that can hurt you similarly to what Wall did.
Yeah, a guy that's 6'8" can use his size, can post you up when you have smaller matchups. And Jacob Grandison is 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
So he could get bodied up a little bit in this matchup.
And he's slim.
He's slimmer, yeah. Slim Jake, I know, is his Twitter handle.
Yeah,
so he struggled against Race last year. Race had 18 points against Illinois here in this building last year. So that would be one thing that you're wondering if he can handle that defensively. If not, maybe it is a matchup where you put DeMonte on him. DeMonte doesn't necessarily have that wing. I know they got Miller Kopp, but Miller Kopp's more of a perimeter scorer. Maybe you can put Grandison on Miller Kopp, DeMonte on Race Thompson. You're giving up size. You're giving up 5 inches with that battle, but physically he can body him up and maybe keep him off the glass a little bit better. Maybe it's his Luke Goody game. I know that the storylines of parents going to Indiana, uncle is Trent Green. It didn't get the offer from the Hoosiers. It'd be a big day for him to step up as well. So Thompson is just very active, very athletic. He does a lot of work on the glass, and you don't want to give him a free run to the rim because he's going to probably finish on your head.
If it is Grandison guarding him, then how does that affect Grandison offensively? We saw him break out of a little bit of a slump there as he was not having a great game. Other than the Maryland game where he made 5 shots, I believe he didn't have another game that he made more than 3 for a solid 3 or 4 weeks there. And he said after the game, I was just done with my slump, which I love. He's just like, mentality over anything. Yep, I'm done. All right, I'm good. Not many people can do that.
No.
But if he is having a tough matchup defensively, does that impact his offense?
It'll be interesting to see. I know Bret has talked about when he was going through some of his ruts is that his offense impacted his defense. If he's shooting the ball well, you can kind of have that trade-off. You're going to understand, like, Jake's going to hit some threes, Race is going to have some buckets inside, and ultimately, if you nullify that, and Illinois can rely ultimately on their depth, where they say, I think, especially in terms of scoring production, Indiana needs to win some of those matchups, like convincingly, to be able to come away with this. Because I think Illinois, as we haven't really dove into yet, has a really big advantage at the guard spot. Yeah. So if Grandison isn't a huge negative in that matchup, if he makes shots, Race gets his, you're probably going to be okay. But ultimately, you don't want Race getting all over the glass, creating a ton of second chance points and to do his thing, because that can make things difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to for me, Derek, is the guard play. If it's superior for Illinois and they make, I put the number at 6 to 8 threes, I think Illinois wins this game pretty convincingly if they can do that, especially if you're on the upper end of 8. I think Illinois has the advantage with Kofi in the post, and I think they will win this game. If you don't and you have a game where you go 4 of 22 from 3, I think it really makes it tough for them to win this game. But that guard play is convincingly better, especially defensively. If you consider Trent and you put DeMonte in there, we haven't talked about Curbelo yet, who I saw on the court here. He's going to play. I only played 12 minutes the other night against Wisconsin, but showed some more flash in what he's able to do. So how do you sum up all of that and what Indiana brings to the table in the backcourt? In my eyes, maybe defensively of what Illinois has, because the defense of the guard play, I think, has been pretty good overall.
It certainly has. I know you look at Parker Stewart, who's their shooting guard, and his numbers in Big Ten play from 3, shooting about 41%, so that's a really good efficiency number from 3, but he hasn't, here of late, been all that productive. He's not a 2-point threat, and he's only averaged 4 points a game over the last 5 contests, so hasn't been all that productive. I broke down Xavier Johnson, who can get to the rim, he shoots threes well in this building in particular. I think Trent will draw that matchup, does a good job of limiting space, limiting open shots, so that would certainly be a key for Illinois. And then off the bench, the fact that Rob Phinisee is not going to be able to play is a big deal for Indiana, where he was the key in them upsetting Purdue.
He was great in that game, especially the first half.
Yeah, he had 20 points off the bench. I think probably 15 or so in the first half, and really provided a spark where Trace Jackson-Davis had 4 points and 1 rebound in that game, and they won. They beat Purdue. So ultimately, Christian Lander's a 5-star guy that you're wondering if he really should have been a 5-star guy. He hasn't really popped for them yet. And on Illinois' side, Curbelo, he did some, it was kind of the roller coaster a little bit, and you're going to get some of that. Like he's aggressive. He's going to make some mistakes, but he's also going to make some brilliant plays. That bounce pass to Kofi on the pick and roll was awesome. And when you have someone like Trace who maybe can wall up on Kofi's post moves, you put them in space and make an easy one, an easy bounce pass and dunk, that's certainly going to help you out. Obviously, if Trent is able to make threes, Plummer, who we haven't really seen explode here all that recently, that would be big as well.
Yeah, when I saw that pick and roll with Kofi and Curbelo, wins against Wisconsin Wednesday, like that's what they were looking for all season. Like that is what it was supposed to be built around, and we saw it, and it was really pretty to watch from what it was. And then you just sit back and think that hasn't been there all year because Curbelo hasn't been on the court. I mean, and Kofi missed his time. I don't know, like if they can get back to that, right? Man, this team has a really, really high ceiling for what it was, and it's just fun to watch. Like that's really, really pretty play watching their courtside.
Yeah, definitely, and it really stresses the defense to send some help to the paint because you know that Curbelo off the dribble can get to the rim. He's got a pull-up jumper that he likes to go to as well, and when he has it going, it's tough to stop. And then feeding Kofi on easy baskets when his momentum's going to the rim is tough. I mean, he's got 7 foot 285 with momentum going to the basket where he can go up and just slam it home. That's hard to stop. And you start cheating inside, that opens for Curbelo to start hitting the corners for DeMonte for three or Grandison for three, Trent Frazier on the wing. Yeah. That really puts Illinois into a mode of being able to read and react and really exploit you because of that strength that Curbelo has off the dribble. So I know that there's a lot of times where he's out there looking for his early on, and he's still getting it into his mode and starting to feel comfortable. But I really like that play in particular and trying to continue to use that pick and roll to just read and react and see what this team can really be.
Yeah, and we saw Kofi with the step back from the free throw line.
Oh, man. Kofi Jokic, man. He's hit 2 of those in the last 2 games.
I know, isn't that crazy? It went in, and hey, I don't think they want to rely on that, but if you can get a little bit of that, hey, you're going to take it if you're Illinois, right? So Curbelo comes back against Purdue, puts up a career-high number. That's great. I think a lot of fans might have said, oh, Curbelo's back, and it is what it is, and then he goes into concussion protocol and misses some time. You mentioned it, but, like, there's going to be an adjustment period coming back for him, for the team, and I think the team overall has really adapted fairly well to that. I did feel like against Wisconsin, Derek, there was a little bit of standing around kind of watching Curbelo. Like, hey, this guy's going to do his thing. And it's really good, and he does, I mean, just magician-like things on the court. What did you make of that stretch, especially in the first half, when he popped maybe 4 or 5 shots there in his 4 or 5 minutes on the court? I don't know. For me, it felt like the team was just watching. How did you kind of assess what that was?
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and I saw Curbelo, I think, in his mind made up that he was going to try to go get one. Yeah. And he was able to make a couple of shots. There's nothing wrong with that, being able to be someone that there are very few guys in the country that can stay in front of him because of his quickness, because he can change on a dime, and because he has the handle. So really with him out, and also when Kofi was missing some time, this team would have long stretches of not scoring, and you needed someone other than Trent Frazier to go get a basket off the dribble. Right. Curbelo will open things up there, but I think he's still developing chemistry with the teammates because he hasn't been even on the practice court all that much with these guys, and they certainly found something offensively when he was out with a lot of ball movement and unselfishness and hitting threes. He's going to still have to work his way back into knowing where guys are at, feeling out certain situations. So I think he's still working through that. And there's going to be some moments where he's going to take a shot and you're going to put your hand over your eyes and be like, man, that was an ugly look. But then
when it goes in, you're like, hey, great shot, right? I mean, if you're an Illinois fan.
He had a handful of those against Purdue. Sure. And when take him out of that game, and you're not going in double overtime. Right. I mean, he completely took over, and he can just do a lot of things that other guys cannot create. He can open things up that certain playmakers, for the most part, are unable to do.
Yeah, and that's what we've heard, Brad, too, the give and take of, hey, you just got to be willing to give some to take what you're going to get from him, which is a special player in that sense. All right, as we wrap up here on the Illini Nation pregame show, about 45 minutes from tip here at Assembly Hall between number 18 Illinois and Indiana, who maybe could sneak into that ranking if they get a win like this. I think Illinois, if it wins today, I think they're in the top 10. I really do. Yeah. You beat a Wisconsin team that's ranked 11th. You go on the road and beat an Indiana team that you said's top 30 in the net. I think that puts them in the top 10 come Monday with that Purdue game on Tuesday, which, man, I mean, I'm not looking past what this is today, but I love Mackey more than this place, just because of the environment in the arena. Kevin's giving me the stink eye right now, rolling his eyes. Have you been to Mackey? Yeah. Okay, he's been to Mackey. All right.
Dump.
He says it's a dump. All right, Kevin. I think it's better. I don't know.
I like my seat better at Mackey. When I have a good seat here, this is great. This is my favorite road venue in the Big Ten.
All right. Okay. I'll take Mackey, but I'm looking forward to that one Tuesday. This one's going to be great today as well. All right. What do you got on the side? I know you got your preview and your pick. I want to know what do you got?
Yeah, full breakdown of this matchup. I know we've wrote about defense. We've wrote about Jacob Grandison talking his way out of a slump as well, and Joey and I are here, and Bloomington obviously going to have reaction and all the kind of analysis after the game as well. We'll do a podcast, so look for that. Mike LaTulip also did a good film breakdown of Illinois defensively in the second half, shutting down Wisconsin. Okay, all good stuff on Illini Inquirer. We will have our coverage as well, both on air and online. You can join Andy Olson tonight on the WCIA 3 News at 6 and 10. I'll be here reporting after the game, and we'll have tons of digital coverage as well. I know Kevin will be getting us some digital content from the rafters up there with you, and I'll be courtside. So what do you got? Who wins? Who walks out here today with a win? It's a tough game, tough environment. The fact that Vegas has the Hoosiers actually as the favorite is interesting, but I have Illinois. I think their guard play ultimately is the difference. I think it's maybe one of those old school Big Ten slugfests where both sides are playing good defense. Illinois 67, Indiana 64. Okay, 67-64. I'm actually going to go the other way, Derek, and I'm probably wrong in this. I think this game's in the 70s. Okay. And I think Illinois does win as well. I'm going to say 74-72. I think both get to 70, and I wouldn't be surprised either if this goes to overtime. I think this is going to be down to the wire, and we'll see what happens with Illinois and Indiana. And like you said, 3-0, Kofi versus TJD. We'll see if it all plays out and how it ends here. And as we wrap up, we'll see. Noon, and I'm ready to go. You ready? Hey, last 5 times that Illinois has been a road dog, they've won straight up.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right. Piper's got the locks. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So for Derek Piper, I'm Bret Beherns. Thanks so much for watching the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Kevin giving us a final tour here of the place he calls God's country. A lot of folks filing in here. Sold out crowd at Assembly Hall. And we will see you after the game with all the digital coverage and on TV. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the game. For Derek, I'm Bret. We'll talk to you next time here on the Your Illini Nation pregame show.